بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله. محمد.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. Three questions. Three questions. At every assembly of Quraysh, there was at least some discussion of what seemed to them their greatest problem, and they now decided to send to Yathrib to consult the Jewish rabbis. Ask them about Muhammad, they said to their two envoys. Describe him to them and tell them what he says, for they are the people of the scripture, and they have knowledge of the prophets which we have not. The rabbis sent back the answer. Question him about three things wherein we will instruct you. If he tells you of them, then he is a prophet sent by God. But if he tell you not, then he is the man, a forger of falsehood. Ask him of some young men who left their folk in the days of old, how it was with them, for theirs is a tale of wonder. And ask him tidings of a far traveller who reached the ends of the earth in the east and in the west. And ask him of the Spirit what it is. If he tells you of these things, then follow him, for he is a prophet. When the envoys returned to Mecca with their news, the leaders of Quraysh sent to the Prophet and asked him the three questions. He said, Tomorrow I will tell you. But he did not say, If God will. And when they came for the answers, he had to put them off. And so it went on day by day until 15 nights had passed, and still he had received no revelation of any kind. Neither had Gabriel come to him since they had questioned him. The people of Mecca taunted him, and he was distressed by what they said and greatly saddened that he had not received the help he had hoped for. Then Gabriel brought him a revelation, reproaching him for his distress on account of what his people said, and telling him the answers to their three questions. The long wait he had had to endure was explained in the words, and say not of anything, verily I shall do that tomorrow, except thou sayest, if God will. But the delay of this revelation, although painful to the Prophet and his followers, was in reality an added strength. His worst enemies refused to draw conclusions from it. But for those many of the Quraysh who were in two minds, it was a powerful corroboration of his claim that the revelation came to him from heaven and that he had no part in it and no control over it. What it Was it conceivable that if Muhammad had invented the earlier revelations, he could have delayed so long before inventing this latest one, especially when so much appeared to be at stake? The believers drew strength also, as always, from the revelation itself. When Quraysh asked for the story of the youths who left their folk in the days of old, a story which no one in Mecca had ever heard, they did not know that it would have a bearing on the present situation, for to their own discredit and to the credit of the believers. It is often called the story of the sleepers of Ephesus, for it was there, in the middle of the 3rd century AD, that some young men had remained faithful to the worship of the one God when their people had fallen away into idolatry and were persecuting them for not following them. To escape from this persecution, they took refuge in a cave, where they were miraculously put to sleep for over 300 years. In addition to what the Jews already knew, the Quranic narrative told of details that no human eye had seen, such as how the sleepers looked as they slept their unwitnessed sleep in their cave throughout the centuries, and how their faithful dog lay with his front paws stretched over the threshold. As to the second question, the great traveller is named Dhul al-Qarnayn, he of the two horns. The revelation mentions his journey to the far west and to the far east, and then answering more than was asked, it tells of a mysterious third journey to a place between two mountains where the people begged him to make a barrier that would protect them from Gog and Magog and other jinn who were devastating their land. The, the god and God gave him power to confine the evil spirits within a space from which they will not emerge until a divinely appointed day, when, according to the prophet, they will work terrible destruction over the face of the earth. Their breaking forth would take them before the final hour, but it would be one of the signs that the end was near. In answer to the third question, the revelation affirmed the Spirit's transcendence over the mind of man, which is incapable of grasping it. They will question thee concerning the Spirit. Say, the Spirit proceedeth from the command of my Lord, and ye have not been given knowledge, save only a little. The Jews had been very eager to hear to hear what answers Muhammad had given to their questions. And with regard to this last sentence about knowledge, they asked him at their first opportunity if it referred to his people or to them. To both of you, said the Prophet, whereupon they protested that they had been given knowledge of all things, for they had read the Torah, in which was an exposition of everything, as the Quran itself affirmed. The Prophet answered that all is but little in respect to God's own knowledge, yet have ye therein enough for your needs, if ye would but practice it. It was then that there came the revelation about the words of God, which express merely a part of his knowledge. If all the trees in the earth were pens, and if the sea eked out by 7 seas more were ink, the words of God would not be written out unto their end. The leaders of Quraysh had not bound themselves to take the advice of the rabbis, nor did the rabbis themselves recognize the Prophet, despite despite his having answered their questions beyond all expectations. But the answers served to convert others, and the more his followers increased, the more his opponents felt that their community and their way of life was in danger, and the more resolutely they organized their persecution of all those converts who could be ill-treated with impunity. Even clan dealt with its Each clan dealt with its own Muslims. They would imprison them and torment them with beating and hunger and thirst, and they would stretch them out on the sun-baked earth of Mecca when the heat was at its height to make them renounce their religion. The chief of Jumma, Umayyah, had an African slave named Bilal, who was a firm believer. Umayyah would take him out at noon into an open space and would have him pinned to the ground with a large rock on his chest, swearing that he would stay like that until he died, or until he renounced Muhammad and worshipped Allat and Al-Uzza. While he endured this, Bilal would say, "One, one," and it happened that the aged Waraka came past when he was suffering this torment and repeating, "One, one." "It is indeed one, one, O Bilal," said Waraka. Then turning to Umayyah, he said, "I swear by God that if ye kill him thus, I will make his grave a shrine." Not every man of Quraysh lived amongst his own clan. and Abu Bakr had acquired a house amongst the dwellings of the Banu Jummah. This meant that they had more opportunities of seeing the Prophet than most other clans, for he used to visit Abu Bakr every afternoon, and it is said that part of a Prophet's message is always written on his face. The face of Abu Bakr was also something of a book, and his presence in that quarter of Mecca, previously welcomed as an asset by the whole clan, was now a source of anxiety to its leaders. It was thought that Bilal had entered Islam, and when he saw how they were torturing him, he said to Umayyah, "Hast thou no fear of God to treat this poor man thus? It is thou who hast corrupted him," retorted Umayyah. "So save him from what thou seest." "I will," said Abu Bakr. "I have a black youth who is tougher and sturdier than he, a man of thy religion. Him will I give thee for Bilal." Umayyah agreed, and Abu Bakr took Bilal and set him free. He had already set six he had already set free six others, the first one being Amir bin Fuhayra, a man of great spiritual strength who had been one of the earliest converts. Amir was a shepherd, and after he was freed, he took charge of Abu Bakr's flocks. Another of whom he set free was a slave girl belonging to Omar. She had entered Islam, and Omar was beating her to make her renounce it. When Abu Bakr happened to pass by and asked him if he would sell her to him, Omar agreed, whereupon Abu Bakr bought her and set her free. Amongst the most relentless of the persecutors was Abu Jahl.
Muhammad, yeah, we'll do that next
Inshallah,
class,
inshallah.
inshallah. Ahmad narrated by with the way of Buraidah that the Prophet, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, said, "The shaitan is afraid of you, Umar." Ibn Asakir narrated that Ibn Abbas, may Allah be pleased with the both of them, said, "The Prophet, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, said, there is no angel in the heaven that does not respect Umar, and there is no shaitan on the earth but that it is afraid of Umar." At-Tabarani narrated in Al-Awsat that Abu Huraira, may Allah be pleased with him, said, "The Prophet, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, said, Allah glories in the people of Arafah generally, and he glories in Umar particularly." He narrated the same in Al-Kabir in a hadith of Ibn Abbas, may Allah be pleased with them both. At-Tabarani and Ad-Daylami narrated that Al-Fadl ibn Abbas said, the Prophet, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, said, "The truth after me is with Umar wherever he is." The two sheikhs narrated that Ibn Umar and Abu Huraira, may Allah be pleased with the both of them, said, the Prophet, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, said, "While I was asleep, I saw myself at a well upon which was a bucket. So I drew from it as long as Allah willed. Then later Abu Bakr took it and drew a full bucket or two, and in his drawing there was some weakness, and Allah will forgive him. Then Umar ibn al-Khattab came and drew water, and it became transformed in his hand into a large bucket. And I have not seen a chief of the people do wondrous deeds such as he did, until the people had satisfied their thirst and settled down thereby the water. And Nawawi in his Tahdhib, the men of knowledge say, this points to the Khilafahs of Abu Bakr and Umar and to the great number of conquests and victory of Islam in the time of Umar. At-Tabarani narrated that Sadisa said, the Prophet, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, said, the shaitan has not met Umar since he accepted Islam, but that he fell upon his face. Dar al-Qutni narrated this hadith in Al-Afrad by the way of Sadisa from Hafsa. At-Tabarani narrated that Ubay ibn Ka'b said, the Prophet, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, said, Jibreel said to me, let Islam weep over the death of Umar. At-Tabarani narrated in Al-Awsat that Abu Sa'id al-Khudri said, the Prophet, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, said, whoever is angry with Umar is angry with me. Whoever loves Umar loves me. Allah glories in the people on the evening of Arafah generally, and He glories in Umar particularly. Allah has not sent a prophet except that He put amongst His ummah an inspired man, and if there is one such in my ummah, that then it is Umar. They said, Prophet of Allah, how inspired? He said, the angels speak by his tongue. Its isnad is Hasan, good. Sayings of the companions and the first generations on him. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, may Allah be pleased with him, said, there is not on the face of the earth a man more beloved to me than Umar. Ibn Asakir narrated it. Someone said to Abu Bakr during his last illness, what will you say to your Lord when you have appointed Umar? He said, I will say to him, I have appointed over them the best of them. Ibn Sa'ad narrated it. Ali, may Allah be pleased with him, said, when the right acting are mentioned, then begin with Umar. We did not think it unlikely that as-Sakina, the divine presence, spoke with the tongue of Umar. At-Tabarani narrated it in Al-Awsat. Ibn Umar, may Allah be pleased with him, said, I have never seen anyone after the Prophet, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, from the time he died, more perceptive and more liberally generous than Umar. Ibn Sa'ad narrated it. Ibn Mas'ud, may Allah be pleased with him, said, even if the knowledge of Umar were to be put in one scale of a balance, and the knowledge of every living being on earth were put on the other scale, the knowledge of Umar would outweigh their knowledge. They used to hold the view that he died with 9/10 of knowledge. At-Tabarani narrated it in Al-Kabir, and Al-Hakim narrated it. Hudayfa, may Allah be pleased with him, said, it is as if knowledge of mankind was concealed in the understanding of Umar. Hudayfa, may Allah be pleased with him, said, by Allah, I do not know of a man whom the blame of the one who blames for the sake of Allah does not overcome except for Umar. Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, said, and she mentioned Umar, he was, by Allah, skillful in managing affairs, absolutely unique. Muawiyah, may Allah be pleased with him, said, as for Abu Bakr, he did not want the world and it did not want him. As for Umar, the world wanted him, but he did not want it. As for us, we have rolled over in it like an animal in the dust. As Zubair ibn Bakr narrated it in Al-Muwaffaqiyat. Jabir, may Allah be pleased with him, said, Ali entered upon Umar and he was shrouded and said, the mercy of Allah upon you, there is no one I would prefer to meet Allah with that which is in his page, the record of his actions after the companionship of the Prophet, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, than this shrouded one. Ibn Mas'ud, may Allah be pleased with him, said, when the right acting ones are remembered, then begin with Umar. Truly, Umar was the most knowledgeable of us of the book of Allah and the most understanding, literally having the most fiqh of us of the deen of Allah. Exalted is he. So At-Tabarani and Al-Hakim narrated it. Ibn Abbas was asked about Abu Bakr and he said, he was the good, all of it. He was asked about Umar and he said, he was like the apprehensive bird which thinks that on every path there is a snare to catch it. He was asked about Ali and he said he was full of resolve, sound judgment, knowledge, and valor. He narrated it in At-Tuyuriyat. At-Tabarani narrated from Umayr ibn Rabi'a that Umar ibn al-Khattab said to Ka'ab al-Ahbar, how do you find my description? He said, I find your description to be a horn of iron. He asked, "What is a horn of iron?" He said, "A strong commander who, for the sake of Allah, the censure of the one who blames does not overcome." He said, "Then what?" He said, "There will be after you a Khalifa whom a wrongdoing group will kill." He said, "Then what?" He said, "Then there will be the trial, affliction." Ahmad al-Bazzar and al-Tabarani narrated that Ibn Mas'ud, may Allah be pleased with him, said, Umar ibn al-Khattab excelled people in four. The affair of the prisoners on the day of Badr, he ordered that they should be killed, and Allah revealed, "If it were not for a decree of Allah which preceded," to the end of the ayah. And in the matter of the hijab, he ordered women of the Prophet, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, to veil themselves. So Zainab said to him, "And really you are responsible over us, O Ibn al-Khattab, and the revelation depends upon us in our houses." So Allah revealed, then if you ask them for some item, to the end of the ayah, by the supplication of the Prophet, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, "O Allah, help Islam with Umar and in his view of Abu Bakr, for he was the first one to pledge allegiance to him." Ibn Asakir narrated that Mujahid said, "We used to say that the shaitans were chained and shackled during the emirate of Umar, and then when he was struck, they spread abroad." He narrated that Salim ibn Abdullah said news of Umar was slow in reaching Abu Musa, so he went to a woman who had a shaitan in her and asked her about him. She said, "Wait until my shaitan comes to me." Then he came, and she asked him about him. He said, "I left him dressed with a piece of cloth as a waist wrapper, smearing the camels of Sadaqah, the Zakah, with tar against the mange or scab. And that is a man whom a shaitan does not see, but that he falls flat on his nostrils. The angel is between his two eyes, and the Ruh al Qudus Jibreel speaks with his tongue." Hmm. Sufyan Athawri said, "Whoever claimed that Ali had more right to authority than Abu Bakr and Umar has made a mistake and has accused Abu Bakr, Umar, and all the Muhajirun and Ansar of making a mistake." Sharik said, "No one in whom there is any good advances no one in whom there is any good advances Ali before Abu Bakr and Umar." Abu Usama said, "Do you grasp who Abu Bakr and Umar were? They were the father and mother of Islam." Jafar as-Sadiq said, "I am quit of whoever mentions Abu Bakr and Umar with anything but good." Bismillah. Muhammad.
Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam teaches Hazrat Mu'adh radiallahu an how to call people towards the faraid of Islam as he leaves for Yemen. Hazrat Abdullah bin Abbas radiallahu an narrates that when Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam sent Hazrat Mu'adh bin Jabal radiallahu an to Yemen, he said to him, "You will certainly meet people from the Ahlul Kitab. When you come to them, invite them to testify that there is none worthy of worship but Allah, and that Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam is Allah's Rasul. If they obey you in this, inform them that Allah has made fard for them the 5 salah during each day and night. If they obey you in this, inform them that Allah has made fard for them zakah, that is taken from the wealthy amongst them and given to the poor amongst them. If they obey you in this, obtain from them the best of their wealth as zakat, and beware of the curses of the oppressed, because there is no barrier between it and Allah." Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam calls Hazrat Hawsab the Dhulaim radiallahu an towards fulfilling the faraid of Islam. Hazrat Hawsab the Dhulaim radiallahu an narrates that when Allah granted dominance to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he sent a letter to Abd Shar and a band of 40 horsemen to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. When they arrived in Medina, Abd Shar asked, "Which of you is Muhammad?" When someone pointed Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam out to him, he asked, "What have you brought to us? I am willing to follow you if it is good." Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said to him, "You should establish salah, pay zakat, safeguard the blood of people, and join good and forbid from evil." Abd Shar, "This is fine indeed. Stretch out your hands so that I may pledge my allegiance to you." Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam then asked him what his name was. When he replied that it was Abd Shar, servant of evil, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "No, you are rather Abd Khair, servant of good." Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam then accepted his pledge of allegiance to Islam and replied to the letter of Hazrat Hawsab the Dhulaim radiallahu anh, who then also accepted Iman. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam calls the Abd Qais delegation towards fulfilling the faraid of Islam. Hazrat Abdullah bin Abbas radiallahu anh narrates that when a delegation from the Abd Qais tribe met Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said to them, "Welcome to people who shall suffer neither remorse nor humiliation in both worlds because they had accepted Islam willingly." They said, "O Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Mushrikeen tribe of Mudar, who are famous warmongers, live between yourself, Medina, and us. We are therefore able to meet you only during one of the sacred months during which they do not fight. We request you to inform us of something excellent that will lead us to Jannah when we carry it out, and towards which we may call our people who have remained behind." Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said to them, "I command you to do four things and forbid you from four things. The things that I command you to do are to believe in Allah by testifying that there is none worthy of worship but Allah, to establish salah, to pay zakat, to fast during the month of Ramadan, and an additional thing is to pay 1/3 of the spoils of war to the public treasury. I forbid you from the following four things: from the drinks brewed in utensils made from marrow, utensils made from hollowed trunks, utensils that are oiled and green in color, and utensils covered in tar. Therefore, the drinks brewed in all of these utensils cannot be consumed because they become intoxicating." Another narration mentions that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam added, "Always bear this in mind and convey the message to those of your people who remained behind." The hadith of Hazrat Al-Qama radiallahu an concerning the reality of Iman, giving da'wah towards Iman and the Faraid. Hazrat Al-Qama radiallahu an narrates that he was one of the 7 people from his tribe who came to meet Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam replied to their greeting, and when they spoke to him, he liked what they said. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam asked them, "What are you?" "We are mu'mineen," they replied. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Every statement has a reality to substantiate it. What is the reality of your Iman?" They replied, 15 attributes prove the existence of our Iman. 5 of those that you have commanded us to do, 5 of those that your messengers have commanded us to do, and 5 are those that we have adopted from the period of ignorance and are still practicing until now, unless you forbid us from them, O Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam asked, "What are the 5 that I have commanded you to do?" They replied, "You have commanded us to believe in Allah, in His angels, His books, His Anbiya, and in the predestination of all good and evil. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam asked, "What are the five that my messengers have commanded you to do?" They replied, "Your messengers have commanded us to testify that there is none worthy of worship but the one Allah, who has no partners, and that you are Allah's servant and Rasul. Furthermore, they instructed us to establish the obligatory salah, to pay the obligatory zakah, to fast during the month of Ramadan, and to perform Hajj to the Kaaba should we have the ability to do so." Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam asked, "And what are the attributes that you have adopted during the period of ignorance?" They replied, "Expressing gratitude when enjoying good fortune, exercising patience when experiencing difficulty, speaking the truth during occasions of confrontation, being happy with the decrees of fate, and not expressing pleasure when an enemy is afflicted by calamity." Addressing the Sahabas radiallahu ta'ala anhum, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam exclaimed, "Intellectuals and well-cultured people, their manners are close to those of the Anbiya because they are so excellent." Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam then smiled with them and said, "I shall advise you with another five attributes so that Allah may complete your excellent attributes. Never store that which you cannot eat, never build that which you cannot live in, never compete to achieve that which you shall have to leave behind tomorrow. Fear that Allah to whom you shall have to go, and before whom you shall be gathered, and concern yourself with that towards which you are heading and where you shall live forever." Hazrat Suwaid bin Harith radiallahu an narrates that he was one of the seven people who met Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam as a delegation. When they arrived in his presence and spoke to him, he was impressed by their mannerism and appearance. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam asked them, "What are you?" They replied, "Mu'mineen." Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Every statement has a reality to substantiate it. What is the reality of your iman?" They replied, 15 attributes prove the existence of our iman. Five of those that your messengers have commanded us to believe in, five are those that your messengers have commanded us to carry out, and five are those that we have adopted from the period of ignorance and are still practicing until now, unless you dislike them, in which case we are prepared to forsake them. The rest of the hadith is similar to the one mentioned above, except that in the place of predestination of all good and evil, he mentioned resurrection after death. And instead of not expressing pleasure when an enemy is afflicted by calamity, he said steadfastness when enemies rejoice at our misfortune. A hadith has already passed earlier in which an unnamed person from the Baladawiya tribe narrates the following conversation between his grandfather and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I asked, "To what are you calling people?" "I am calling the servants of Allah to Allah." Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam responded, "What have you to say?" I asked further. He said that you should testify that there is none worthy of worship but Allah, that Muhammad is the Rasul of Allah, that you believe in everything revealed to me, that you renounce Lat and Uzza, and that you establish Salah and pay Zakah. "What is Zakah?" I asked. "Wealth that our rich give to our poor," came the reply. I responded by saying, "These are excellent things you are calling towards." Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa
جزاك الله خيرا
sallam.
وبارك. Finish that, inshallah. صلى الله على سيدنا محمد.